Today we're going to be starting the new topic, which we named Eating Out Without a Doubt, and we'll be giving the first class on that topic today. Just a quick overview of what we're going to be covering. We're going to start with covering generally what could go wrong when eating out, what to look out for to see if a place that you are looking into is recommended, if it has a good hashgacha, if it's up to standards, and hopefully we'll start getting some clarity on that. We'll see how far we'll get, and then we'll continue on that in the next few classes. So obviously at home, we generally have a pretty good grasp of what we keep and what standards we keep, as well as which hashgachas we use. And if we have some questions, it's all in our control. We know if we want to hold off on something until we get an answer, and we really could feel 100% comfortable that we know everything coming in, we know everything going on, and we really could be comfortable with our standard. However, when eating out, there could be so many questions, so many doubts. How can we feel comfortable that this place is actually up to our standard, up to something that I personally at home would feel comfortable eating? And whether the question is, are they as careful in checking for bugs as I am? Are they making sure that every product coming in has a good hashgacha? At home, it's usually me or someone else that's Jewish over there, and they could be having many non-Jewish chefs, and there could be other issues or people that are not as aware of Kashrus. How could all that be smooth and up to the standard that I feel comfortable? And all these are valid questions, and obviously the moment you're eating out, there's a big aspect of lack of knowledge and lack of control that you would have in your home, and lack of clarity. And I'm sure it's never going to be exactly like it is at home, at least in comfort-wise, but we want to be armed with as much information as possible and as much as we could know to make the experience as comfortable as possible, almost as if we are at home and we are comfortable eating. When we say eating out, it's not just going out to a restaurant or on vacation. It's even when you're going out to a simcha, to a l'chaim, to a bris, to a wedding, or to a party. The moment we leave our houses is when we leave in our comfort zone. And the moment we leave our comfort zone, we really need to keep our eyes open to make sure that we feel comfortable. And many times people tend to assume something is acceptable or totally fine based on people. I see everybody shopping at the store, so everything at the store must be fine. I see many people buying this product, so this product may be fine. I see many people eating at this place or eating at the simcha right now, it must be fine. But in truth, someone who really cares about kashrus and really wants to be comfortable with what they're putting into their mouth should not just be following what the people are doing, but should actually make their own ask their own questions and do their own investigation to make sure that it's something that they would feel comfortable with and accept in their own home and do at their own house. So to start, we're first going to explain the difference between standards, or what standards are, and systems. So we'll start with the standards. Standards are, there's a certain level that a person wants to keep. Whether when it comes to meat, they want it to be l'bavshishchita, or obviously if it's dairy, they want it to be chalav Yisrael, and if it's baked goods, they want it to be pas Yisrael. There's always that bar that someone sets as their standard, and that's what they want to keep. And usually people, first thing they'll ask if they're going somewhere, or especially if it's a place they're not so familiar with, they're going to ask the basic stuff. Is it up to my standards? Is it chalav Yisrael? Is it pas Yisrael? They'll ask these basic questions, which is that's how they could define, that's the most tangible way they could define their standard. But first of all, even the standard which you feel you are officially following, at times the hashgacha that's giving hashgacha may have a different view. For example, you strictly keep pas Yisrael, and the hashgacha writes on the certificate pas Yisrael. But in truth, they are allowing some leniencies. For example, they'll approve non-pas Yisrael breadcrumbs if the breadcrumbs are being deep fried, or they'll approve certain type of breadcrumbs called panko breadcrumbs, which are some opinions that hold that they don't need to be pas Yisrael because they are electrocuted. And we're not going to get into all details right now, but just to give two quick examples, and or for milchik still consider something chalav Yisrael even if the supervision was not fully done with the physical mashgiach and there was camera intervention, which not everyone is comfortable with that idea. So in the meantime, you're saying I want to keep my standard, I want chalav Yisrael, and the certificate saying it is chalav Yisrael, but it could be a lower standard. So it's a lower standard within the standard that you generally keep. So that's where the power of being educated comes in. You could ask a few more questions before even just jumping to the conclusion that this is up to my standards. On top of that, you need a strong hashgacha backing and guaranteeing that you are actually going to be served pas Yisrael. Because if the hashgacha is saying pas Yisrael, but they don't have a mashgiach in place or there's no proper enforcement, then any bread could get into that place. Forget about it being not even pas Yisrael. It could be non-kosher bread got in there because no one's on top of it. And even if a place is writing chalav Yisrael, but if there's no proper system in place and proper enforcement in place, then anything could be ending up. Forget about chalav Yisrael again. It could be even non-kosher products which will end up there. So just because there's officially a standard and hashgacha says it is chalav Yisrael and pas Yisrael and whatever else you wanted to hear, it checks off, and levav shchita, there could be many underlying issues that could be totally invalidating the whole entire place. And that's where we come into the discussion of what makes a hashgacha a reliable hashgacha. And really what makes a hashgacha a reliable hashgacha is the system that it has in place to properly enforce and implement whatever it is telling you that it's certifying. So if hashgacha is certifying something is chalav Yisrael, they are having properly trained Mashgichim that are involved in every aspect, and they're on top of it. And not only that, Mashgichim have someone else checking on them, and everything is set in a very systematic, professional way to make sure that everything is enforced and implemented properly. And then what they're actually telling you is actually happening and is actually backed. Otherwise, there could be horror stories, and I hear them all the time. We'll maybe share something very quick. There was once a family that reached out to me only after the fact. They told me that they went on a cruise and they called up beforehand and they asked the basic question: is it going to be levav shchita? Is it going to be chalav Yisrael? Is it going to be pas Yisrael? And they were told yes, yes, yes to everything. Ultimately, once they were on the cruise, they started finding things out. Really, there was no Lubavitch meat over there, and they were just someone was just saying it is. And really, they were using non-chalav Yisrael butter, and the Rebbe was relying on the leniency that you could use non-chalav Yisrael butter for even if someone keeps chalav Yisrael. And they were one thing after the other. Suddenly, they realized that most of the things that they were told, and they were not kashering the pizza oven properly. So even though technically the pizza oven, in theory, maybe even if they use chalav Yisrael cheese, and the Jew turned on the oven, it was a treifa oven because it wasn't kosher properly. So there could be so many details that can go wrong. That even if someone's things check off, we need a very good, reliable hashgacha actually backing those standards and having a system in place. So it's important to have both the standards and a strong system in place, which is backed by a good hashgacha. Just to give some examples, and hopefully maybe with the class we'll touch on some more things. So a hashgacha could be saying, we're not just going to speak about specifically eating out, but even on products. The hashgacha could write something as chalav Yisrael, and then a restaurant which officially certifies itself as chalav Yisrael will be using that product. But in the meantime, since it was a weak hashgacha that certified it, there wasn't proper Mashgichim that went to the farm. They came too late. They missed the milking, so it wasn't even no Jew even there present when it was milked. Or even if there was a Jew there, the Mashgiach wasn't aware of the very important details about the health of the cows that can make them actually treif, non-kosher, and their milk be non-kosher according to Minat Torah. If they had a certain surgery or they have some health issues, the Mashgiach never looked out for that. So if there's a Mashgiach watching milk coming out of a cow, he doesn't know that this cow is actually a treifa, and any milk coming out of it is not kosher. So on so many levels, things could go wrong with when you don't have adequate Mashgichim. And the same thing, something could be pas Yisrael, a Jew turned on the oven, everything's good, but no one separated challah. and the challah is not separated, it's tevel. It's forbidden to eat that food. But it could be made with the best ingredients, and a Jew turn on the fire and be labeled pas Yisrael, but because of that detail, someone wasn't on top of challah being separated. It's tevel. It's absolutely usur. Or someone could have a mashgich tzmidi, and there's a mashgich at all times in the restaurant, making sure everything is good. But the mashgich wasn't trained properly for checking for bugs, and they're using fresh herbs in all the food and all that. And in the meantime, there's bugs in all the food, which is also absolutely forbidden. And this is just some examples. So we see the importance, and again, as the class goes on, we'll give as this topic goes on, we'll give other examples. We see the importance of not just asking for a standard, but trying to figure out a little bit of information, finding out, is this a good hashgacha? Is this a hashgacha that has a strong system in place? And only if we feel comfortable with all that could we go ahead and partake and eat. Otherwise, there could be many questions that could make us uncomfortable. In addition to all this, a reliable hashgacha is not just about the Rav's name. So even if you see a very respectable Rav or a very respectable Beis Din that put their name on a certificate, it does not mean that that place is going to be acceptable to eat at. Because although the Rav may be on a very high level, or the Beis Din, and the standards are, but if they don't have a professional, proper system in place and have adequate personnel working for them to enforce everything, things could just fall through the cracks, or things could be overlooked, and we can have all the issues that we just gave some examples of that could happen, and therefore that's not that on its own as well is not enough. But therefore we need to have guidance, and many times it's very hard to do the homework yourself. So if you have a Kashrus expert or guidance from a Kashrus expert as to which hashgachas is taking responsibility, it's extremely important. It's not enough to hear a famous name. It's not enough to hear high standards. You want to actually make sure that this is a proper hashgacha which has a very good system in place. In addition, is very important is the mashgiach, because even if everything coming into the kitchen was properly approved and everything was really the best possible standards of products, the highest level of pas Yisrael, the highest level of chalav Yisrael, the highest level of meat, but in the kitchen the mashgiach was not on top of his game, and he forgot to turn on something, and turn on the oven or turn on the fire, and the non-Jew turned it on, the guy turned it on. Right there, it would be bishul akum. The food would be not kosher. You'd have to kasher the kalim. Or if he turned away and the non-Jew turned on the rice cooker, same thing. The rice becomes not kosher. You have to kasher the kalim. It could be serious things happening in the kitchen itself, even if all the products that came into the kitchen were fully kosher and on a very high level, high standard, and a good hashgacha within the kitchen. If the mashgiach is not on top of his game, many things can go wrong. And that's just two examples of other things that can happen as well. If the kitchen has fish and meat being cooked at the same time, we know there's a sakana of fish and meat being eaten together. Cross-contamination in a busy environment can be very easy, especially with non-Jewish workers that don't really know or may not be as careful, and if the mashgiach is not on top of it, there could be an issue with that. So having mashgiach in the kitchen that takes it seriously and is on top of his game as well is very important. And above everything really is an owner that is trustworthy. Because if the owner is not trustworthy, there could be all the Mashgichim in the world, you could have all the cameras, you could have everything in place, he'll figure out a way if he's really interested in getting around or bringing something in, he could figure out a way to get it in, and no one's going to know, because at the end of the day, it's not impossible to sneak things into a kitchen, or it's not impossible to rig the system. So it's extremely important also that the owner is on the same page. That's why there are many people which are careful to only eat in restaurants or establishments or catering, whatever it is, that's owned by a frum Jew, that's Yari Shemaim, that's God-fearing, We're not saying that this is a requirement, and one could speak to their personal Rav Mashpia as to whether they should be taking that on, but that there are some people out there that will only eat in such places due to that, because at the end of the day, the owner is still a very important part. So even if you know that there's a Mashgiach and things are under control and the hashgacha is a good hashgacha, but on top of that, they also wouldn't feel comfortable unless the owner is a reliable, trustworthy person, that's Shem Shabbos, Shem Mitzvahs, that's God fearing. So that's another aspect. Or at times, some people may feel comfortable with the owner if it's Jewish, but if the owner, for example, is not Jewish and he doesn't value the same values of Torah and mitzvahs and does not have that feeling that growing up with Yir Shemaim for keeping every detail of Torah and mitzvahs, then there's a more of a concern. Someone could feel less comfortable. Again, doesn't mean there's anything wrong halachically, but feeling comfortable that everything is actually running the way it should could be a little bit hard if it's an owner which is not Jewish. So all these things are ideas that exist out there, and for such a question, someone should speak to a Rav Mashpia or for someone that can give them some guidance how to go about such a case. But really, the triangle of having a reliable hashgacha, a reliable mashgiach, and an owner that you trust is the basic foundation to um, even thinking of being out of place. Obviously, then making sure that has your standards. But if you don't have these three, a strong owner, a strong hashgacha, and a reliable owner, and a strong mashgiach, it doesn't matter what they tell you from today to tomorrow. You can never really be comfortable that that's actually what's happening. So those are very, very important. Now, when it comes to the mashgiach, sometimes just having a quick conversation already, you can pick up that the mashgiach's on top of his game. The mashgiach is knowledgeable and you feel comfortable. And sometimes in a quick conversation, you may feel that you actually don't feel comfortable. He doesn't seem to really know what's going on, and you rather stay away from such a place. And sometimes you could be not sure and maybe ask a few more questions. And this is also something which we're going to discuss in the upcoming classes: what kind of questions to ask a mashgiach to get a feeling. Does he really know what he's doing? Is he really on top of his game? Does he really know what's happening in this place? So sometimes people ask, but if the mashgiach is not someone I would feel comfortable eating in his house, someone without a beard or someone that doesn't seem to be fully 100% from to the level that I would feel comfortable eating at their house, does that mean I can't eat at the restaurant? So in truth, that's not what we're looking for. We're not looking for someone that you would feel comfortable eating at their house, because over here he's doing his job of enforcing the kashrus of the hashgacha. So at his house he may have his leniencies or he may do things in one way, but over here, since he's representing the hashgacha and he's officially enforcing a certain standard, you could feel comfortable with that as long as you feel comfortable with the mashgiach himself as a person, that he's actually taking things seriously, that he actually knows what's going on, he's on top of his game. But his personal level of what he keeps at home, as long as he's a from Shem Shabbos, Torah mitzvahs, and as generally God-fearing Jew, that shouldn't make it or break it for you whether you feel comfortable in the place. It's more about whether you feel comfortable that he actually knows what's happening, he's actually on top of his game, and he's actually was trained properly and knows what's happening in the kitchen. So we'll stop here for today, and we'll continue next week on the same topic again of eating out without a doubt.